It's time to open up another file. So I'm going to go to the Quick Access toolbar and choose to use this open yellow folder here to open up the file. Once I hover over it, you'll note that a second method, if you wish to use, is your keyboard shortcut Control-O. But I'm going to just simply click on Open. And once I click on Open, the Open dialog box is in view. I'm going to browse to the correct file that I wish to open. And once I double click on that file name, in this case Budget, you'll see that Budget is the file in view. We're going to navigate to some cells within this Sheet 1 of Budget. We could certainly click on any cell and it'll bring that cell, make it active. But we can also use our keyboard. You'll note on your keyboard 4 arrow keys. Of course, you can go up one cell by using the up arrow, left arrow, down, of course, by using that down arrow, and yes, your right arrow. Don't forget, you can use it to go right. There's other keyboard keys that actually behave the same way, to go up, left, down, or right. If I choose the Enter key, you'll note that I am directed downwards one cell. If I use the Shift key with the Enter key, Shift, Enter, I'm taken the opposite direction. And of course, in this case, I'm going up. If I choose to Tab, I will be taken one cell to the right. When I use the Shift key in conjunction with the Tab key, I am taken the opposite direction. And of course, you can see I'm going one cell to the left every time I hold down that Shift key and press Tab. So don't forget about using the keyboard keys in order to navigate to one cell at a time. It might almost be more controlled than just using your mouse skills. Another way to go to a specific cell is to go back to this name box, and right now it reads B12. And when I hover, just to remind you, that screen tip is going to tell you name box. I'm going to click here when it reads name box, and you'll see that that cell reference is highlighted now. B12 is in a bluish kind of gray look. When I type in a cell reference such as T26, no space in between, and I press Enter, you'll see I'm taken to T26. And of course that's what the name box reads as well. I'm going to try it again, click in that name box, and I'm going to type in H8, for example. Press Enter, and I'm taken to H8. So the name box is not only handy for you to know exactly what cell reference you're in, but it also is a quick way to go to a specific cell once you type in there and press Enter. The Control-Home keyboard shortcut is one that's universally used, not only just for Excel, but Word, PowerPoint, and the like. When I use Control-Home, note that it takes me to my A1 cell, similar to what Word would do for you, and also PowerPoint, in that if you use Control-Home, they take you to the top of the file. If I use Control-End, Control, and that's the END key, you'll see it takes me to the bottom right-hand portion of this spreadsheet. You might be wondering why didn't it take me to the O25 cell, because it almost feels like it should be taking me to the bottom right-hand corner of data. In this case, row 26 is actually formatted with a double top underline above it. So when you use Control-End, it takes you to the bottom right-hand corner where there's data, or where there is formats associated with that cell. Or you could be taken to the cell that used to have data or formats in it, and they've been cleared out. Back to A1 by using Control-Home, and we've finished our navigation. Suppose we want to select more than one cell. Remember, there's only ever one active cell at any given time in a spreadsheet. But we might want to highlight 2, or in other words, select 2 or 3 or 4 in order to edit, format, or even enter. Now most of us are used to clicking and dragging. We start here, let's say at A1, and note the mouse symbol here, it's a white cross. And we drag down perhaps, and then over to the right, and we are, once we let go, highlighting a few cells here. I'm going to use Control Home and notice that I go back to A1. It deselects my previous selection, and this time, instead of using the mouse to select, I'm just going to use the keyboard. So if I use the Shift key and I hold it down, and then I tap, for example, the down arrow, you can see that as I'm tapping that down arrow, you probably can hear it too, it's going to be selecting one cell more at a time. What's interesting to note here is that indeed I've got more than one cell selected, but you can see there's only ever one active cell. So a reminder here, whatever's in the name box is going to indicate to you what is your active cell. Because if I started typing right now, the data would appear in A1. So if I type in, let's say, hello, you're going to see the data appears in that A1. Now I'm not going to follow through with it entering hello here. So if I want to cancel, you might remember that the keyboard shortcut for cancel is escape, and that's that ESC key at the top left hand corner of your keyboard. So I'm going to press escape, and it does not accept my entry called hello. It cancels it. But let's focus back on these cells that are selected. Remember again, A1 is your active cell, but 2 all the way through 15 for column A are also highlighted, or also known as selected. I'm going to show you now why you might want to select before you enter. Guide your eyes downwards with me while I go to sheet number 2. So we're still going to stay in budget. I'm going to highlight just by using my keyboard again, A1 to C9 selection. So I held down my Shift key, I used my down arrow a few times, and then I continue to hold my Shift key and used my right arrow a few times. When I type in hello now, you can certainly see that yes indeed, hello is now in A1. So it seems. But I haven't pressed enter yet. If I press enter at this point, do you see how the selection is still selected in this container? So that if I continued on entering, and as soon as I type in an A9 and press enter, you can see the selection is still contained for me so that I don't lose my selection. It's pretty important at times to select your portion before you type so that you don't lose that area that you're trying to enter some data in. I've seen it sometimes where folks say, I don't know where I was, I've lost the row that I'm on, and I want it to be contained in a certain selection or certain area. Well, highlight first before you type. The key here is to use the enter key or shift enter that we were talking about for navigating, or tab, or shift tab. If I land up clicking on any other cell, like let's say here I'm just pointing to E5 right now and I won't select it yet, it's going to deselect my previous selection and take me to E5. That could be very well what I want to do. But at this point though, if I decide to use my arrow keys, let's say I want to go down to C3 and I'm not remembering that enter is the keyboard key to do so, I might want to use my down arrow. And as soon as I do that, folks, yes indeed I'm taken to C3, but it deselects my selection. Now I'm going to show you another example though why you would want to select first before you enter. Again, I'm just going to use my keyboard keys here to select. Do a simple selection here. Type in coffee, and I'm not going to press enter at this point. I'm actually going to use Control Enter. You can see that that entry has been replicated throughout the selection. Before you enter data, ask yourself, how many cells do you want to see that piece of data be in? Yes, you could have typed in coffee in one cell and then copy and pasted to however many cells that you would want that entry to be in. But if you select first before you type, then once you type and use Control Enter, it's going to sprinkle that entry throughout all of that selection. I'm going to show you another example. I'm going to click in B14, and we're going to do a non-consecutive selection. So before, when we were using our shift arrow keys, we were consecutively selecting neighboring cells. But suppose I want to select B14 as well as E17. I'm going to use my keyboard and my mouse this time. I'm going to hold down Control, then click, and you can see that there are 2 cells selected. At this point, I could choose another cell, and another, and another. I use Control and then click. At this point, my last cell becomes my active cell. So I16 is the active cell. I could extend the selection so that I have consecutive neighboring cells at this point selected as well by using a shift click. From this point, I16, down to K19 is selected, as well as those other cells that I had control clicked to. So shift click, consecutive cells, control click, non-consecutive cells. I can type in my data, and if I want to replicate, you might recall Control Enter, and every cell that was selected as part of this group now has that word, in this case test, sprinkled throughout.